Chapter 131. Joint Combat Training 2-17 edited. Leaning against the wall of the corridor at glassed hall, the girl who had been lying there curved her lips into a faint smile. The student council building was bustling with joint combat training. The sounds of battle could be heard here and there. While everyone's attention was absorbed by the combat training, Adele sat quietly, reflecting on her life. It was a life so tumultuous, no one could match its ups and downs. Constantly struggling just to survive, she never had the time to contemplate the meaning of her existence. But now, after all the blind rushing about, she had nothing to show for it. She had fought hard to survive, yet she had not managed to attribute any meaning to that life. As that man, Ed Rothtaylor, had said, if flailing about indignantly and grinding one's teeth in desperation were what it meant to survive, then the life one fought so hard for must have inherent value. However, if she was asked what value her own life held, Adele found herself without a story to tell past the lump in her throat. Her life had been about survival rather than living. That was the nature of it. Indeed, she spoke as if it was something remarkable, but life was often like that for most people. The world was full of human beings desperately striving to protect their own flesh and blood. Everyone was struggling for survival for their own reasons, including Todorek as he braced himself against Merylda's strike. It was an incredible feat just for a human to withstand a high spirit's blow. Todorek successfully blocked Merylda's front paw with his spear, then with a trembling hand, he even managed a test of strength. However, with a couple of magic arrows lodged in his shoulder, the balance of his strength crumbled, and he fell back. Quickly getting up to prepare a counterattack, he was abruptly attacked by Leisha the lioness, who bit deeply into his shoulder. He tried to regain his stance after being torn at, but now before him stood both the high wind spirit Merylda and the high fire spirit Tarkon, exuding their powerful presences. Likewise, Verju struggles against a corner, seeking an escape. The moment he locked eyes with Lucy, he tried to grab the subdued saint and run in another direction, but a magic bullet swiftly hit his right foot, sending him tumbling down. Clarice was released from his grip, and Lucy stood up. Verju tried to cast some elementary sacred arts for protection, but with a mere flick of her finger, Lucy shattered his defensive formation. He tried to quickly get up and escape but fell down again, his back slashed by a basic wind magic of Wind Blade. Bleeding, he tried to push himself up once more. But his strength failed, and his face planted on the ground. Still, he gritted his teeth and tried to get up. With much effort, he raised his head just to find Lucy looking down at him indifferently. Yet, Verju did not give up the strength in his arm. He fought for survival. The life of the Sword Saint Tylee was also a sequence of ordeals. Enduring endless trials, he had mastered the Sword Saint's style and had been tirelessly working hard up until today's joint combat training. The student council building felt noisy outside, but within the secluded training grounds, the commotion hardly mattered. His immediate focus was on his current challenger. Among the many first-year challengers, he never let his sword falter. Neither the combat department's top, Wade, nor the magic department's top, Joseph, could defeat him. Even when Claude, the top of the alchemy department, utilized every underhanded trick to overcome him, Tylee did not concede defeat. Even after seeing Claude ingest the forbidden elixir, blood of the fallen god, Tylee refused to shy away from the battle and met him head-on. And Yennefer Feylover is no exception to this blindness. Beyond her blurry vision, she can only make out Ed's silhouette, sparring with Todorek. No matter how proficiently one could command high spirits, there was no guarantee of defeating an apostle of Telos in a one-on-one battle. Her body, pushed to the limits, screamed for relief. But sensing Ed Rothtaylor undertaking a life-threatening fight, she clenched her teeth once more and summoned her magic. Finally, Yennefer drew every last drop of power from the depths of her being, conjuring up the high fire spirit Tarkon for one last stand. One highest ranked spirit, one high spirit, 8 mid-spirits, 117 lesser spirits, and 417 unembodied spirits. This was what was known as a one-man army. Single quote. Though she had called upon future powers and whittled down her own life force to manifest such forces, her ability to resonate with spirits was beyond imagination nonetheless. Fires and winds cut through clearings in forested areas as Ed readied his dagger and bow between the two high spirits. The clamor of the two men crashing into battle fills Yenika's ears. Even Clarice, Adele's close friend, is no different. Having escaped Verju's grasp, Clarice gets up again. Already covered in scars and now bearing the brunt of Verju's attack, she limps towards the cathedral. There, someone with the power to put an end to this entire situation, Saint Eldane. At this point, even he, known only for his piety, could not stay idle. Reaching the cathedral doors, they opened on their own before Clarice could even attempt to unlock them. Saint Eldane and his entourage emerge. Despite some damage from Verju's ambush, there were no fatal injuries. The cathedral knights respectfully greeted the saint as they passed by her side and headed towards Verju. Between them, Saint Eldane stepped out, bowed politely to the saint. He was considered the most sacred power beneath Telos on earth. Even so, he bows respectfully to Clarice and then walks past her towards Verju. Cathedral knights encircled the fallen Verju, and Eldane looked down at him through the gaps. Verju, gritting his teeth, tried to manifest a divine technique, but before the knights could even respond, Lucy crushed his arm under her foot. He shouted in pain and grasped Lucy's foot, but no influence could affect her body engraved with protective spells. Lucy's face remained utterly expressionless as she watched Verju's struggle. Above all, Ed Rothtailor must have lived the most fiercely. Ed Rothtailor pulls the bowstring with his body already covered in wounds. In the midst of the wind magic from Merylda and the fire magic from Tarkhan, Todorek somehow held on. He deflected the magical attacks with his spear, dodged Ed's arrows, and avoided both Tarkhan's tail and Merylda's front paws, steering the battle. Yet, facing the two high spirits and Ed Rothtailor, shrouded in all manner of blessings, was a challenge. Therefore, it was necessary first to whittle down the opponent's strength. Though Ed Rothtailor was reasonably resistant in close combat, Yenika Feylover, already in a battered state, was different. If she were stopped, not only the flaming lizard before him but also the flying whale obstructing his allies' support could be neutralized. Toderek's attack instantly switches to the panting and feverish Yenika Feylover. His decision was bold. Any hesitation amidst the precarious battle would lead to his defeat. Todorek knew this well. His adjusted grip pointed his spear towards Ed Rothtailor. Ed prepared to evade as the spear was thrown. But, the true direction of that throw was at Yenika Feylover. Already exceeding human strength, Toderek's spear flew at an inconceivable speed towards Yenika. However, Ed Rothtailor did not even glance in her direction. This was peculiar considering how dearly he seemed to regard her. Clang! Finally, Todorek realized his every move was being anticipated. A lower spirit named Muck nestled under Yenika's shawl burst out, materializing an explosion to deflect the spear. Anticipating an assault on Yenika, he had moved Muck, one of his core forces, to her side. If one attacks, vulnerabilities arise. With his center of gravity pushed forward and without his spear, Todorek was exposed. Tarkhan's tail lashed out. Todorek raised a guard and tensed his abdomen to withstand the blow. His legs sank into the dirt as he was pushed back. While his bones remained unbroken, this created an unavoidable opening. Merylda's teeth seemed to snatch him up. Todorek shifted his weight in response, but two more magic arrows pierced his shoulder. A groan involuntarily escaped his lips as Merylda's massive teeth punctured his right arm. Blood splattered, his complexion paled, but Ed did not relax. Delving into his cloak, he drove a dagger deep. A subsequent explosion from a spirit formula, explosive sonic followed, and Todorek was flung away. Thus, Todorek, bearer of the third seed of swiftness, lost consciousness. A completely exhausted Ed collapsed onto the dirt ground. Tarkhan's massive form and Merylda's magically taxing presence dissipated as she reassumed her girl-like form and landed on the ground. Fluttering her white dress, Merylda ran towards Ed and helped him to his feet. Merylda knew his goals. She quickly caught the necklace with Bellbrook's fang as it slipped from his grasp. She continued to support Ed as they walked deeper into the forest. The woodland stretched inexplicably vast. Reaching the forest's end was never the goal. Supported by Merylda, Ed persisted, clinging to Bellbrook's fang-tooth necklace. He slowly realized it. The magic flowing on its surface diminished incrementally, until it disappeared entirely. With great effort, Ed raised his head to look. Before him lay a vast lake, the heart of this forested area. So breathtaking was the sight that he involuntarily sighed. Looking up, he saw the sky give off an illusion of a colossal dragon's head. How many deaths had he faced to reach this point? Still, it was clear, every painful death had not been in vain. It was not in vain. That thought alone felt like salvation, making the open sky seem even more immense. Ed received the tooth of Bellbrook from Merylda. The faint magic it once held had also vanished. Taking a deep breath, he threw the tooth into the lake. The tooth of Bellbrook floated through the air before finally sinking to the bottom of the lake. Adele opened her eyes. She slowly got to her feet, leaning against the wall, as blood dripped down, staining the floor. Ed Rothtaylor, using trees for support, moved forward. His body thoroughly exhausted, he barely made it back to where Yenneker was sitting. In the process, he had run out of magic energy, and Merylda's summon was released. All that was left was his battered body. Ed collapsed in front of Yenneker, both of them in pitiable physical states. With a light tone, Ed spoke. "It's all over now." Quote, as the joint combat training neared its end. The giant dragon of Bellbrook, after all, did not appear. "Let's go back, Yenneker." Quote, asterisk, gathering all the magic he could muster, he summoned Leisha and rode on its back to the vicinity of Akan Island. By the time they crossed the Mex's bridge, there wasn't enough magic left to sustain Leisha, and he had to carry Yenneker across on his back. When the two heavily injured students crossed the bridge, the academia's staff were shocked to see us, but they protected us and helped us to the medical facilities in the student union building. The academia was peaceful, at least more so than before. The sudden appearance of the high-ranking spirit above the academy, the apostles of Telos who fought against it, the terror caused by holy arts near the academy cathedral, and the expulsion of Archbishop Verju. In Glassed Hall, a freshman who drank the blood of an evil god caused a commotion. With all the chaos, they couldn't spare many people to help us. It wasn't as if we were fatally injured, it was just exhaustion, so it didn't matter much. However, because Yenneker needed rest as soon as possible, I asked the academy staff to help us get to the student union quickly. As we were making our way there, a grand carriage came to a halt before us. It seemed like it was heading towards the Mex's bridge, but it stopped abruptly upon seeing us. The carriage was all too familiar by now. The carriage door opened, and an escort knight emerged first. Slowly he prepared to escort the owner of the carriage, but she burst out impatiently and threw herself into my arms. "Senior Ed, Saintess Clarice of the Telos Order, as noble as Phenia, the third princess, disregarded onlookers and propriety, engulfing herself in my embrace. It's all over. It's all over. Yes. Really, really. I was about to tell her to be conscious of the onlookers when I gave up. After such a hellish ordeal, it must have been hard for Clarice to contain her emotions. Really, everything is over. Verju has been officially expelled, and His Holiness will send an official apology for the disturbances caused within the academy. The giant dragon didn't show up either. That's right. Quote, we did it, we really did it, without Senior Ed. If you weren't there, Adele. Her tears welled up, and suddenly, Clarice lifted her head. Adele, the situation was urgent. To make the most of this last chance, every minute and second were precious. Now, she had to recall that name. Where is Adele? Asterisk. A life spent running. Freedom was discussed, but survival was the true desire. Yet, why ultimately return to the sacrificial magic circle to face death? Was it mere pity for Clarice, who would have to face a condemned fate in her stead? Pity, compassion, guilt. Did these feelings compel Adele to throw her life away without a choice? While somewhat true, it wouldn't be the entire answer. Passing through the commercial city of Oldic to the sacred city Carpea, wandering as a minstrel across the world, until finally reaching Sylvania Academy. In the end of her life, what always lingered in Adele's heart was the memory of playing the lute at the window of the castle in the Holy City. A life without purpose. At least until she left the Holy City. The decision to view various sceneries while roaming the world was because she did not want the song she sang for Clarice to remain a lie. Claire had always shone her eyes brightly, listening to Adele's lute at the window, motivating the girl to become a minstrel. She wanted to become a real minstrel to fully embody the meaning behind the words she had said to her. Thus, Clarice was the meaning of Adele's life. She was the one who gave value to an otherwise meaningless existence. A life without family or comrades often leads to a sad end. Some threw away their lives while others found purpose in life by taking the lives of others. Adele could only smile softly at her end. In the end, Adele had only one thing to leave behind for Clarice and Ed. It wasn't a long story. Bang! Ed and Clarice burst through the doors of glassed hall. Among the numerous corridors leading to the practice area, they rushed to the deepest and darkest one. Round the corner, and there she was in full view. Her expression was at ease. As always, she looked content. The slowly expanding pool of blood cradled her like a crib. The sight of the girl rubbing her eyes on the bench came effortlessly to mind. "I'm scared." Single quote. "I don't want to die." Single quote. But the face leaning on the wall seemed too peaceful. How could that be? Many wonder what she had feared so much, and the answer wasn't too hard to find. What Adele truly dreaded was a meaningless death. Thinking of Clarice left alone under the cold walls of the Holy City, even her death seemed meaningless. To be manipulated by the Order or to become a fallen saintess, turning the world against her. A future for Clarice that was nothing but heartbreaking. However, it was a needless worry. Only after Clarice confirmed Ed was by her side could she finally let go of that fear. Feeling like redemption itself, she smiled at last. Though her life was fleeting like the wind, her life and death had purpose. Embraced in Ed's arms, Clarice wept loudly for quite some time. Thankfully, Ed was there to hold her. He hugged Clarice for a long time, giving her someone to lean on emotionally after losing a dear friend. So, become strong. To you, who became my life's punctuation, this book's final sentence is dedicated. Lucy. The girl on the rooftop of Glassed Hall closed the book with a clap. This building too was built through her grandfather's sponsorship. The official last published work of Glassed, Southbound Observations. Single quote. While the original was sold at a high price to a noble magical family, the real original was in Lucy's hands. The sold book was just a high-quality copy, but nobody knew that now. Lucy didn't much care. If everyone believes it to be the real thing, then it becomes so. Quote. The last sentence of this book held a particular resonance for Lucy. Even up to his death, Archmage Glassed wrestled with finding meaning in his life. Was life, after all, a journey in search for that reason? Lucy was too young to see the grand schematic of such an odyssey, but she felt an inexplicable sense of emptiness. The tiresome joint combat training also came to an end. A first-year alchemist caused a commotion, but Sword Saint highly suppressed it quickly, preventing major harm. The disturbance of holy arts in the cathedral would be discussed appropriately by the Academy and the Sacred. Adele's case is likely to be shouldered by Verjus since the Saintess knows all the truths. The sudden appearance of the high-ranking spirit caused surprise, but without human casualties or property damage, it would end as a minor incident. Though someone might get a scolding. "I want some beef jerky." Quote. Looking up at the sky, the sun was setting. Lucy closed her eyes, surrendering to the warmth of the late spring breeze. Memories of the past suffuse warmth to her ears, but she lets out a sigh, casting away the peculiar embarrassment. Summer is soon upon them. With the beginning of the vacation, camp work will get busy again. Then fall will arrive, and winter will follow. Time will continue to pass. As it always has.